Hello and welcome to another edition of Kayak Fishing Weekly. I'm your host, Justin Largen, and as always, we're the show on the Serious Angler Network that is dedicated to all things kayak fishing. Uh, Hopefully, you enjoyed our bonus content from last week. We had a chance, or I guess from earlier this week, we had a chance to talk to Drew Gregory about his win at the first stop of the Bassmaster Kayak Series on Lake Havasu. That was cool. If you missed it, he provided some really cool footage. Shared his GoPro footage from the event. Havasu is really cool looking. I've never been out there. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. There were some really cool photos out there though, and Drew was gracious enough to share some of that content. So if you want to see Drew catching some fish, some nice smallmouth in the Colorado River feeding into Lake Havasu, check out that episode. But on that bonus episode, we didn't go through news notes. I didn't talk too much about the event other than Drew's recap. So I want to do that here before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the show. And then before we do that, it is cold out there. It has been cold here in Virginia for the last couple of weeks. I think it's been cold seemingly everywhere in the country. I hope wherever you are listening from, you are warm, dry, and hopefully we're going to provide some entertainment for you for the next little bit. I know for me, I'm starting to get amped up for Florida. I've been down a few times. Once on kind of a fun trip. My first trip down there was 2019, and it was just a fun deal. I wanted to go down there and catch some big bass in the winter. And I've gone a couple times in the years since for tournaments. And it's been a lot of fun. It really is a great escape. If you're in my part of the country or anywhere north of there, it's like being in a different world. It's like you're here where dead of winter, you can go to Florida and it's still wintertime temperatures for Florida, but it's way warmer than here, and you can actually find fish spawning, uh, or pre-spawn, just about to spawn. Florida's a neat deal, and our guest tonight is a very, very good angler from the state of Florida. Very good, specifically at catching big bass. So hopefully he's going to drop some knowledge tonight. And yeah, I spent most of my day today working on tackle. Uh, Dumped everything out in a big pile on the floor and sifted through and kind of picked out what I thought I would need. And then went through and made a second round of cuts because I still had too much stuff to take. Whittled it down to a reasonable amount of tackle, a handful of hard boxes. I've got a couple of Rubbermaid bins, kind of medium-sized ones packed with plastics. And then I even made a run over to the missile headquarters. I'm fortunate to be close to that headquarters. Ran by the shop, saw the folks over there, and picked up some baits. A couple things I wanted to have a little bit. Want to make sure I had enough of in case I get on the right bite down there. So picked up some jigs and some plastic that hopefully will come into play here soon. And shout out if you like missile baits like I do, that way, you can get a lot of missile products over at Omnia Fishing. So check out Omnia Fishing if you need some missile plastics for a Florida trip or for wherever you're going to do your fishing. What else? Oh yeah, so after messing with tackle for a while and then heading over and restocking on a few things, I went outside. There's some work I've been procrastinating on. I got a seat riser kit last year for my kayak, and I have not installed it yet. And then I also have managed to mess up the rudder. I managed to bend the rudder on the kayak, so I had an upgrade, one of these metal upgrades from Snipe Air Industries. And yeah, so I went out to work on that, and I got some of the work done. But man, I was out there right as the sun was starting to set, and it got miserably cold. It was the warmest day we've had in a week, I think, but still miserably cold. So I cannot wait to get down to Florida and escape this, if only for a few days. Cannot wait for a little reprieve. All right, let's talk tournaments. I'm going to jump into Tourney X here. I think I got it up. Kissimmee, first Bassmaster. I'm sorry, not Kissimmee. Woo. Havasu, first Bassmaster event of the season. As I said, we talked to Drew. If you want to hear Drew go in depth on his strategy and how he executed that strategy to get the win, check out the bonus episode that we dropped earlier this week. But top five, in fifth place, John Turner put up 153 inches. Mark Kyle, 158 inches for fourth place. In third was J.J. Gibbs with 158 inches. In second, Cayman Rasmussen. I see that name a ton on the KBF leaderboard. I have over the years. 163 inches for the runner-up spot. And as you know, Drew Gregory for the win. Shout out to all those guys. And also, I want to throw in the sixth place angler, Kong Yang, 148.5 inches. And I want to mention him also because those top six were the only six anglers in a field of, it was over 100, it was 111 anglers. Those six guys were the only ones to put up limits both days, which, shout out to them. The conditions were tough. High winds made it tough to fish out on the main lake, clear water, not the best conditions. A lot of hammers in this event, and a lot of folks struggled. So congrats to those six for figuring it out, putting together 2 solid days of fishing, and coming out of there with a little bit of money and some points. And those top five guys, as with all the Bassmaster Kayak Series events, the top 5 anglers will qualify for the championship. And they do it a little bit differently than some of the other trails. You're actually qualifying for the 2026 championship. So the 2026 Bassmaster Classic, the Kayak Series Championship, is going to be held in conjunction with that. We don't know a location yet, but those top 5 guys, congrats on qualifying. And yeah, again, to highlight just how tough the fishing was, I'm looking at 81. I'm trying to do some quick math in my head here. I'm looking at 30 anglers that did not catch a fish in this tournament over 2 days. So Stingy Lake Havasu, congrats to those anglers that persevered. And yeah, I am looking forward to stop number 2. As I said, let's see. Stop number 2 is Kissimmee. Event is going to take place February 1st and 2nd. As of right now, there are 139 anglers signed up. So it's going to be a good field. We still got some time. I'm hoping we get up to 150, 200, somewhere in that range. And yeah, some guys are going to have fun. You got the potential to catch the biggest bass of your life down there. And I even heard, I was listening to Bailey and the guys on the Serious Angler podcast, the main show. They interviewed none other than, why is my brain not working? John Cox. I was trying to remember which John. John Cox. So yeah, he dropped some Florida knowledge. And one of the things that he said that kind of stuck with me is conditions right now, this cold weather has kept the fish kind of at bay. And he said that it reminds him of the year that Dean Rojas set the Bassmaster single day record with a 5-fish limit of over 45 pounds. And there, where we're going, the Kissimmee chain, it's the same place. So Lake Toho is one of the lakes that's in play, and that's where Dean Rojas did it. So to hear Bassmaster Elite Series Pro John Cox talk about how it's similar conditions, I hope he is right, and there's a big wave of spawning fish that push up, because I love to do that. I would love nothing more than to try to catch a giant bass off of a bed. But regardless of whether that happens or not, it's going to be warm in Florida. There's giant bass down in Florida, and there's going to be a possibility for pretty much everybody in the field to catch the biggest bass of their life. So cannot wait for that. Cannot wait. Please get me out of this cold. Let's see. I think that I have hit on all the notes I wanted to cover. So it's about time to get to the meat and potatoes of the show. Shoot, I've been rambling for 10 minutes already. Yeah, we're going to get to our guest here shortly. Before I bring Dalton on, I want to talk a little bit about him. Uh, he is, well, he's a hammer in the state of Florida. I noticed him on Instagram. Didn't really realize it was the same person. I independently, followed him on Instagram, saw him with some just gigantic fish, seemingly all the time. And I happened to be going through some leaderboards on the KBF Challenge Series, so the online monthly tournaments. And I happened to be scrolling through. I was just curious to see what some of the biggest five fish stringers were, and I ran across his name. And let's see if I think I've got them all pulled up here. So I went back and actually looked. I didn't connect the dots initially, but when I realized that name and then went and searched it on Instagram, his page popped up, and he is. I wrote it down. I've already forgotten it. It's just Big Bass, so it's just _big_bass, just Big Bass. That's Dalton's Instagram handle. And when I did that, I typed in, obviously his name, Dalton Albright, and it pulled up that page. Wow, I really can't talk today. But yeah, it was. So I realized, oh, it's the same person. And listen to these numbers, because I went back and looked at several months, 2024. I'm going to see if I can pull them up in the correct order here. I've got 4 tabs open. So starting in March, the first opportunity to fish a challenge series event in 2024, Dalton won the Florida side with 122 inches, 122 and 3/4 inches. So that's 5 fish for 122 inches. His smallest fish was a 24. He got a 24 1/4, 24 1/2, and 2 25s, which is nuts. That is a massive, massive stringer. Anywhere you go, regardless of what you're fishing out of, those are 5 giant bass. I have yet to catch a 25 incher, and I've been doing this for a long time. Let's fast forward to April. So month 2, Dalton puts up 122 1/4 inches, wins again. His fish range from 23 3/4 to 24 3/4. So massive fish. And skipping on to what's next, May, 124 1/4 inches. He put up a 26-inch bass. That was his biggest. He's got another 25 1/2, a 24 3/4, 24 1/4, and 23 3/4. So these are massive fish. In the course of those 3 months, I think he put up more giant bass than I've probably put up in my entire life. And I also pulled up June. So June, let's see, dropped off a little bit, still more than I've ever caught with my 5 biggest bass in a month. He put up 115 1/4 inches, fish ranging from 22 1/4 inches to 24 1/4 inches. And yes, he is fishing in Florida. There are giants in Florida, but that is absolutely insane. So I wanted to mention that just so folks know this guy knows how to catch big bass. So wanted to get that out there so people know we're not just talking to anybody. We're talking to a big bass specialist, and a big bass specialist who's doing it out of a kayak. He's not out there in a big bass boat, run all over the place. He's doing it like you and me in a kayak. So can't wait to talk to him. So I guess without further ado, let's bring him on. All right. Dalton Albright, ladies and gentlemen. Dalton, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
I was telling people before bringing you on that I kind of first found you on your social media, and it's just Big Bass. I remember seeing all the big fish you posted, and then I independently was scrolling through Fishing Chaos, looking at some of the KBF tournaments, the challenge series, the online monthlies, and I was just curious. I don't even remember which tournament I was looking at, but I started scrolling just to see who what some of the biggest limits were. I think the biggest I ever put up, and it was like by far the best I ever did, was something like 114. But I was telling everybody that you put up, I just looked at the first 4 months of last year, and you were like 124, 122, 122, which is freaking crazy. Like, I mean, I know it's, you're in Florida, but I don't care where you are. That's massive, massive fish. So I'm cool to hear, I'm excited to hear a little bit about how you catch some of those big fish. But before jumping into that, I want to hear, we'll call it your origin story, kind of how you got into fishing and fishing from a kayak. What I guess, what was your origin story?
So I've been fishing my entire life pretty much because there's baby pictures of me with like a Shimano Stratic and stuff. So yeah, I've been doing it
You had
my
some
whole
good
life.
stuff starting out.
Oh yeah.
All
But
right.
for like kayak fishing, I got my first kayak when I was in ninth grade. It was just it was a 10-foot sit-in sun dolphin kayak, just
Okay.
nothing fancy. And that's how that really may help me learn a lot more from since I didn't have to bank fish anymore. That I learned a lot with that little kayak.
Yeah, that's something I try to preach to people with kayak fishing. It's a great way for somebody that's young or that doesn't have a lot of money to get away from the bank. Because I mean, I had a lot of fun wading rivers around here, like in college, but I mean, it wasn't until after I got out of school and kind of had my first job that I had a boat and a way to get away from the bank. And it's like the learning curve, like when I was able to get away from the bank and explore, it was totally different. Was
Hmm.
that kind of your experience? Just opened up the
Yeah,
world?
definitely. Oh yeah, a lot. It helps out a ton. Just being able to fish wherever you want.
And you're located in Florida?
Yeah, I'm in West Central Florida. Is
Okay.
like the general area. Yeah.
So you grew up fishing the Sunshine State.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a little bit jealous. Maybe we've had some other guests on the show from Florida. Uh, some guys talking saltwater and freshwater too. But I feel like that is like one of the meccas in this country, like for whatever kind of fishing you like to do.
Oh yeah,
So
that for sure.
was it always bass for you, or have you done a little bit of
Um,
everything?
when I was little, my parents had a 24-foot bay boat, so I did a lot of saltwater fishing.
Okay.
And it wasn't till I'd say like sixth or seventh grade I started like get into bass fishing because I was watching like the Guggen Squad guys like back before the Guggen Squad existed. That was like just seeing like pond hopping and stuff. That's what got me into it
Okay. Who's your
originally.
favorite?
John B for
Ah,
sure.
I like John B too. I got people that probably hate me for saying it. I'm blanking. What was it? One rod, one reel.
Hmm.
I the screaming got to me a little bit, a
Yeah.
little bit much. He got more excited than Ike and Ellie did. But
Hmm.
yeah, John B. I enjoyed watching him. God, what was the clip where it's him? Oh, is it Perrick? Him and Perrick fishing
When
like
they
on
lost the big one
yeah,
and
Gary
yeah.
Yamamoto's. That one was entertaining. Like that's
Hmm.
that might be my favorite Coogan moment. But
Yeah.
I gotta like those guys deserve a lot of credit. They found a way to take like a passion and turn it into like a
Hmm.
livelihood, which I'm a little bit jealous, but they worked for it and I think they really changed the industry a lot. But
For sure.
when
They got a ton of people into it that wouldn't be into it because of them.
yeah, so you're one of those people.
Yeah, but like back before they were even the Guggen Squad, like way back in the day.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm a lot older than you, I think.
I'm 22, so
Okay, yeah, almost double you. I just turned 40. So
uh,
it's I'm a little older, but but yeah, I mean, fishing makes me feel young, so that I don't know for whatever that's worth. But I'm curious, that sun dolphin. Um,
mhm.
I've got a Crescent ultralight that is in that same what it's 10 foot. I'm not sure I think it weighs 47 pounds. And I use that as kind of a throw and go. Is that similar to what that sun dolphin was like?
Yeah, just bringing it around to play, trying new places, looking for better areas, stuff
Okay.
like that.
And I know one of the things I like about that little kayak is some of the rivers. Like we've got some tidal rivers around here, or at least where I used to live. That it's a lot of real shallow water grass,
Hmm.
some big grass flats, and little places you can sneak into with a kayak like that. And I found it slides over the grass really well. even better than my heavier stuff like my Hobie. Like that little lightweight one just cruises right over the top of stuff. Have you been able to take advantage of that in Florida?
Oh yeah, a lot. There's well, kayaks in general, you can take them in a lot of places in Florida that the bass boats can't, just because of how thick some areas are with hydrilla and things like that. So that's just like a big advantage in general with kayaks, I feel. But with the sun dolphin, there's a big river kind of close to my house I fish at a good amount. That's out there I learned a ton with the sun dolphin back with, before I got the kayak I currently have.
Okay. What are you running now?
A 10-foot native Slayer Propel is my
Okay.
current one.
I tell people I work for a retailer. We sell kayaks, and that native, it's 10 foot, but it's very different from that Sun Dolphin.
Oh yeah, a lot wider and bulkier.
So you can stand up, I imagine, and set the hook, do all kinds of. You pretty much, I mean, use any technique with something that big.
Yeah.
Did you ever stand in the Sun Dolphin?
Oh no, I never bothered trying with that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it'd be easier or harder than a canoe. I've never tried to
Probably
stand up.
harder because it's really light and unstable. Because I've stood up in canoes before, but
Okay. All right. So your fishing style, I'm a bank beater. I like getting in the shallow stuff. Like it's part of why I love fishing down in Florida. There's so much habitat. I mean, aside from the fact that there's big fish. But what's your style? I thought I saw some stuff on social media with forward facing. Are you more of an offshore guy?
So a little over a year ago, I turned into a live scoper, but before that, I was bank beating and doing all that stuff.
Okay. So what? I don't have live scope yet. I'm hoping to get it. But I guess what's the biggest change? You feel like you're catching more fish or bigger fish now than you did?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, my personal best was out of that sun dolphin, so it's not like I need it, but it helps out a lot for just being a lot more efficient with targeting big ones.
Okay. Like I said, I always picture Florida like there's so much grass, so much habitat. Like it's one of the places where I feel like I can get away without it. Like I don't. There's other places like these deep highland reservoirs where I know I'm going to get my butt kicked. Trying to fish without electronics. But I feel like Florida is one of the places that I don't know. I never thought of it as a place to live scope. But
yeah, there's
you seem to.
sometimes of the year where the shallow stuff could be better than live scope, and like if there's a really big wave of spawning fish, or if they're like summertime, there's a lot of fish in the mats and stuff. But other than that, I feel like it's more effective to target the really big ones with it compared to
Gotcha.
doing the shallow stuff.
So those big fish get offshore and just kind of roam?
Yeah, there's most places have like a good offshore grass line, whatever type of grass it is, whether it's like a deep lily pad edge or hydrilla, milfoil, whatever it is. There's almost always like a certain zone where you can find big fish in, just depending on how it sets up, like what type of high percentage area it is.
Okay. And you're finding them relating to cover most of the time, like a brush pile or something, or just like
Yeah,
I hear about these guys in Texas, like just out over nothing and finding these big fish roaming. But
that does happen sometimes, but for the most part, it's fish setting up along like a point, like where the grass turns into a point or a cut, or there'll be like an isolated patch of grass off of the grass line. They'll kind of hang around. Stuff like that is
okay.
what I try to target.
And are you like I've only seen it used like live once. I mean, I've seen it on the TV screens and stuff, but um, my buddy that kind of showed me a little bit with it, he was able to see fish, and it was more schooling fish though. Like I hear, and I'm not even sure how to ask the question really, but I know that there's guys that can like see a fish and see which direction it's swimming and tell you how big the size is. and like drop a bait right on its head 30
Yep.
yards from the kayak. Are you that dialed in?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Any secret? Is it just, time and practice, or
Yeah,
are
it's
there?
just putting the time in because when I first got it, I had no idea what was what. It's just putting the hours in. So you
Okay.
know what's what. Because
So
I waste a lot of time casting at gars and turtles and stuff in the beginning, but
starting out.
yeah.
You ever see gators on it?
Yeah, I've seen gators, manatees, all sorts of cool stuff.
Oh, that'd be cool. I want to see. It'd be cool to see what it actually looks like. Does it look kind of like the silhouette, and you can tell what it is, or
Yeah, if
is it
depending on
grainy?
how it's positioned from you, like if it's swimming away from you, you can see like its tail moving and stuff.
Dude, that's cool.
Yep.
I've yeah, I don't know. I've debated. Initially I didn't really like the idea of live scope, but the more and more I hear about it, it just seems like you can learn a ton. And there were a lot of myths that were proven kind of, at least from what I hear from guys. There's just a lot of info that or stuff we believe that's not actually the way it is.
For sure. Like if I had to go out now without it, I like know so much more than what I did like before I ever had it, just because I have a lot better understanding of how they're gonna set up, just based on the conditions and where I'm fishing and things like that.
Gotcha. Which type of unit do you run?
I have a Garmin with the LVS 34.
Okay. I know a bunch of guys use the Sniper Marine pole. Are you using a pole like that, or a homemade deal? I've seen the
Yeah,
PVC ones too.
it's a fishing specialties. I don't know exactly what the model's called, but I know that's the
Okay,
who makes it.
cool. Um, so I guess first off, are you fishing Kissimmee?
No, I'm not gonna be there.
Okay, and I'll back up even further. Are you doing mostly just the online tournaments, or
Yeah,
are you doing?
currently that's what I've been doing the past few years. Once I'm out of college, I'm gonna get more into all the different trail series and things like that.
Dude, that's awesome. Still in college, and like I think you've caught more big bass in just in 2024. Shoot, in the first couple months of 2024, I've never put a 25 on the board. I've got a couple 24s, but that I was looking at your 26 earlier. What's your biggest bass down there?
So my personal best is 12 pounds, 10 ounces.
Cool.
That one was 26, and I caught it flipping lily pads with a Texas rig Senko. So,
Oh, yeah, that's my style. Flip it. I
mhm.
love to flip and pitch. But yeah, 12 pounds. That's 2 pounds bigger than my best.
Mm,
And 20, you said 27?
26. It was a
26.
big pre-spawn fish.
Okay. Dude. All right. So you think when you get out you'll do some in-person stuff, or for now you're happy with the
Yeah,
online?
in May there's a tournament kind of close to me. I'm planning on doing it, but other than that, for like I hate having to travel, so that's like the main reason.
I'm with you. And I'll caution you. The tournaments are a lot of fun. I spent a couple years driving all over the place. I went all the way to California for one event, uh, a bunch of times to Texas, like halfway across the country, all the way up north, New York, uh, Lake Champlain, I mean, all over the place. It is fun. It's also addicting, and it's very expensive. If
Hmm.
if you can do well, uh, fishing locally and you're having fun, dude, keep doing it. It
Yeah,
it's I'm grateful that I got to travel when I did, as much as I did, but it will put a strain on the piggy bank.
right.
All that gas, and yeah, it's definitely it's not something that I can afford to do. I was able to do it for a little while,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's I definitely miss some of that competition. But I started getting into the local stuff like more recently, and those tournaments are a lot of fun. For me, they're less stressful. if I have a bad one, I'm not mad the whole rest of the day or the next like
Right.
2 days driving back across the country. So, dude, if you're having fun and from what I was able to see on Fishing Chaos, it looks like you're killing it down there. So keep doing that, man. Don't waste your gas money. The you know the fishing in Florida is fantastic. It's tough to catch 24 and 25-inch fish when you go other places.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm going down to Kissimmee, and I've fished it a few times, but I looked. Let me see if I still have it up. Nah, I closed it out. I think it's like 12 different lakes that are in play for that tournament. So it's
Hmm.
kind of I've been down a few times, but I've only been on a couple of the lakes in that chain. So, I'm going to be fishing some new stuff. And I imagine that a lot of the other guys that are going to go down and fish that tournament will be fishing something that, they potentially never seen before. So do you have any advice on what somebody should look for, like in Florida, like general, like when you get to a lake, a new place, what's the first thing you're looking for?
So the very first thing I'm looking for is like a nice offshore grass edge. 'Cause that's where just in general, there's usually going to be a lot of fish, of like especially the bigger ones like to hang out around the deeper grass. And
Okay.
so like an edge in general is like a good high percentage area. So just looking for the good offshore grass, looking for
And
any
they're
irregularities that might hold more fish compared to others.
okay. That was what I was going to ask because man, I've been down there before and you just see these massive pad fields or like a line of Kissimmee grass that just seems like it goes forever. Uh,
Hmm.
it can be a little intimidating, but you focus on irregularities, anything that's a little bit different than what's around it.
Yeah, whether it's like a different bottom composition, a change in vegetation, whatever it is, that's what I try to focus on.
Okay. Any particular like favorite type of grass?
I like hydrilla lakes in general. That's just what I prefer. It seems to hold more big ones usually.
Gotcha. I've heard a lot of people say the same thing. Um, what about is there milfoil? Is there much of it down there, or is
Yeah,
it
I see it a lot in like the rivers and stuff like that.
okay?
But it can be good for like frogging and things like that, depending on the time of year.
Gotcha. But if you could only have one, it'd be hydrilla.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And not to get too much into like tournament strategy stuff, but I've been debating because I know I'm going to have like one day to practice, and I've been looking at maps and trying to figure out, where am I going to go? And I had looked at Toho. Um, I heard the grass. There's a ton of hydrilla that it's choked out everywhere, and part of me is like wants to go mess around with that, but I know there's so much of it.
Hmm.
I feel like with one day, it's not enough for me to actually, I could go all day and just not run into them. I feel like so
Right.
I'm probably not going to do that, but if I had more time, I think that was something that it's going to be hard for me to resist. That I love to find hydrilla and God, I love I think Florida it was different like Harris chain, but that's kind of the first time I really was throwing the hybrid hunter
Hmm.
that I forget what it used to be called before Strike King got it. But have you ever thrown that thing?
A little bit. I haven't used it a whole lot. I prefer like chatterbaits and things like
Gotcha.
that over. Yeah.
See, that's why I like it because everybody loves a chatterbait, and I've caught a ton
Hmm.
of fish on it, but I'm always trying to think of something different, and that down there, just fishing some hard grass like that hydrilla was where I mean I'd thrown it a little bit, but that was the first place where I really had success with it. Realized you can catch some big fish on that thing, but
Yeah.
it was definitely a hydrilla deal for me. What about punching? You do much of that?
I like punching punching in the summer. The river that's near my house has a ton of pennywort and hyacinth stuff like that. So I do a lot of punching out there.
You're speaking my language. That stuff. My first trip to Florida was 2019, and I that was it was a weird cold front. Seems like every time I go down there, like they'll get it'll be cold. There'll be a front that moves through. I think it was 39 degrees the first morning that I launched. But that was how I caught fish, was finding the hyacinths grouped up on like where they were in some other kind of grass. And
Mhm.
I don't know how the right way to describe it, but it just sort of gets stuck. The
Right.
little root balls get stuck in the grass, and that was I don't know, something about punching. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Is frogging down there something you can do this time of year, or is that something more
Um,
summertime or
like
later into the spring?
at this moment, it probably wouldn't be good because the water's in like the low 50s currently. So
Ooh,
yeah, there probably isn't much of a frog bite going on right now. But
dude,
once it
50s.
starts to warm up into like, and they start to move up into their spawning areas, you can catch them on a frog.
Okay. And I was hearing, shoot, I'm not sure if are old enough to remember Dean Rojas when he caught that 45-pound
Oh
stringer on
yeah, at
Toho.
Toho. Yeah.
You were probably little
Yeah, I mean, I know of it. I didn't like watch it live,
when
but
around.
I know of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even, they didn't have live coverage in those days. It was Bassmaster magazine. But I remember flipping through it, and then they had a TV show too, I think. But I think I read
Mm,
about it, and I can't remember if it was Bassmaster or Bass Times or both of them. But it was uh, it was kind of discouraging for me because I mean I wasn't that old, but every single one of those fish that he caught was bigger than my best to that point. So it's like this dude just went down there and caught like 5 fish bigger than anything I've ever caught in my life, like in one day. I can't imagine what that would feel like. But
yeah, that's crazy.
the reason I brought it up because it happened on Toho, and I was listening. Bailey and Andy and Adam, the guys on the Serious Angler podcast, were talking to John Cox earlier this week or last week. I can't remember. They talked to him recently, and he was talking about conditions being similar, and that got me really excited. He was saying that it was similar conditions then, where we had this nasty, nasty run of cold weather that kind of kept fish at bay. It kept maybe fish from spawning in more in waves. And there was kind of a big mad rush on the banks where a bunch of females came up shallow. And
Hmm.
that's the kind of thing that I daydream about is having just a bunch of giant fish pull up shallow where I can see them.
Yeah, it's supposed to warm up like next week. So like for the Kissimmee tournament, I could see like a good shallow bite depending on how much it actually warms up.
Okay, so there's a chance.
Yeah, for sure. Just depends on what the temperature ends up being.
Now, do you do much sight fishing down there, or I know now
I
you like to get
have
off the bank?
like currently I don't even bother with bedfish nowadays. I'm just
You don't
always
get to
going for the big pre-spawners, but
heavier.
yeah,
Okay. How many uh how many you got over 10?
I've caught 8 double digits, 4 with live
Okay.
scope and 4 without.
Dude, that's like I said earlier, I'm 40. I got my first one last year. It took me, and I think I started like really seriously bass fishing, like nerding out and reading all the books and like getting the magazines and all that when I was about 12. So what's that, 27 years it took, 28 years to yeah, almost 28 years to get my first double digit. So that is
I mean, it's
impressive.
not easy to do it. So,
Mm,
where'd you catch it at?
mm, I don't remember.
Oh,
It's this lake in Virginia. It's
okay.
the locals kind of know about it. It's not real big. It's kind of a shallow, dirty lake that I think they put. I think it might have Florida strains in there. I know
Mm,
that's something they've done here in Virginia. Is like Smith Mountain Lake is one of the big lakes that's close to me. Kind of the biggest, like big tournament lake. I think it's like 20,000 acres. And they started putting like hybrids, the F1 tiger bass or whatever.
mm,
I'm not sure if that's the same thing. That they basically a northern and a Florida cross they've started putting in the lakes,
yeah.
and they've been doing well. Some, if I understand it right, the genetics don't like they don't transfer beyond like that initial fish. Um, I have like I didn't pay that much attention in science class, so but I've heard guys say that it's like the first generation grows big, and then their offspring don't get as big.
Hmm.
But I've noticed, and not just me, like there are some really big fish coming out of that lake now. The lake's really healthy from those tiger bass, and they've done it in some other places. Briery Creek is a really good lake in Virginia, one of my favorites, and I'm pretty sure that at least at some point they dumped those Florida mixed fish in there.
I was gonna say, it seems like Virginia is good for bigger bass compared to a lot of the northern places, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I don't know, it's weird because like I caught that one big fish, and ironically, my second biggest fish in Virginia I also caught last year. It was 9 out of private water. I still count it, but but yeah, like they definitely can grow that big, but I feel like it's certain places that have whether it's the right genetics or food source. Like at one point there were, I think it was like 90s, maybe to early 2000s. There were some really big bass coming out of Briery Creek.
Mhm.
So when I mentioned they kind of built it like Lake Fork, just standing timber everywhere. So plenty of habitat for them. I think it had a good forage base. And I've heard of them up to 14 pounds coming out of there. Like our state record's 16, so there's definitely big fish here. It's just, um, it's not something that. Well, I don't know that I'll ever get another one in Virginia. There's a lot of anglers that are better than me that have probably spent more time than me and still haven't gotten a double. But there's a lot of 5 to 7 pound fish,
Mm.
and I've caught more in that range than it takes a real freak fish up here to I think a lot of what we have is those northerns, and they don't get as big.
Right.
But again, I'm no biologist, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I got a buddy, Casey, that I mean he smashes them on some of these lakes, and yeah, if I didn't know people and see people like posting these big fish, I wouldn't believe they were there.
Mhm.
And a lot of those guys do kind of what you're doing, more offshore. Um, it's tough. I mean, you can catch them like my style, but I feel like I need to grow kind of as an angler and learn what you're doing. That live scope game, it just seems like watching my buddy just that one time was pretty eye opening. Like what you can see going on,
Right.
and like fishing with him, my confidence, just knowing, like not even, I wasn't even looking at the screen most of the time. Um, but just knowing that he's like, yeah, there's a group of them over there, and knowing that I'm casting and putting my bait in front of fish is like a confidence boost for me. Like
Yeah, because it you could be doing everything right, and if there could just be no fish in that area, even though it could be like the right area and the right presentation and everything. So it helps eliminate a lot of dead water for sure.
gotcha. And I don't know if you do it too, but like for me, I find myself if the fishing is off, I'll catch myself like going through the motions at times,
Yeah.
and kind of spinning out, trying a bunch of different things, but not really like committing, if that's the right word.
Mhm.
And when I know there's a fish there, like when my confidence is higher that I'm putting it in front of a fish, I seem to fish. I slow down a little bit. I fish more thoroughly, and I'm not like just sort of daydreaming. Like
Oh yeah,
like
for
I
sure.
I feel like the live scope would like just helping me eliminate water. I can see the advantage.
There's some days where I'll go hours without seeing anything. All of a sudden, there'll just be like a random 7, 8 pounder just sitting on a log or something. So it definitely it lets you be like more prepared, I guess, for when the opportunity comes.
Gotcha. Um, Shoot, I just had a brain fart. I had what I thought was a good question, and now it's gone. Oh, I hate it when that happens. Don't get old. It's no fun. Um, wow. Wow. Huh.
I could get into like what I'm throwing if you
Dude,
want.
yeah, let's go that direction. Maybe my idea will come back to me, my question. But yeah, let's hear how you catch them, like techniques, style.
So for like I'm going out tomorrow, and what I'm mostly going to be focusing on is an Alabama rig and a jerk bait for the most part for this time of year at least. Because like I said, the water's in like the low 50s. There's a no, the spawn isn't really happening right now. They're all offshore. I'm sure there's schools of big fish setting up in certain areas. So that's just all I'm gonna be looking for really
Okay.
for like this time of year. And then when spring comes around, I'll be throwing more glide baits, Texas rigs, jigs, things like that.
Okay.
And then
So, oh, don't let me cut you off. Sorry. Keep going.
for when it's more post spawn, I get into throwing like the big 12, 16-inch worms, bigger glide baits, things like that.
Okay. That's
That's
actually
like
the
that kind of is like what I do for the spawn for live scoping like throughout the spawn.
okay. So you're just going to those bigger baits as the water temps are increasing.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. And I'm sure the places you're throwing them, everything looks different down there compared to around me. But honestly, a rig and a jerk bait's what a lot of guys do up here this time of year. I
Yeah,
guess it's all relative.
one of the places I fish a lot is a reservoir style lake. So there's a lot of offshore timber and things like that. So I'm sure it's not. There's probably just a lot more grass than the places you're fishing, but probably I'm sure it's not that different at least.
Gotcha. So how do you deal with the grass with an A rig? Are you using exposed hooks still?
Yeah, I'm not fishing like in and over there. I'm fishing like along the edges and then like in the open areas
Gotcha.
rather than going like over it. And I'll
Okay.
throw the jerk bait over the grass and things like that. If I'm
Gotcha.
not like actually targeting like singling out fish, if I'm just like blind casting.
Okay. And that I think that was more or less the question I was going to ask earlier was uh, are you using it just to look at like I guess to identify a specific fish, or do you also use it to find habitat, like to see
I
that grass or
Yeah, I use it for both. It just depends on the situation. Like depending on how many fish there are in like open water or like isolated, just randomly suspended, things like that.
okay. So a rig jerkbait this time of year. What about the little ping and a minnow or the little Demiki rig or whatever you want to call it?
I don't really throw that much. I try it, but it doesn't work for me for whatever reason. I've used so many different Tamiki rig baits, trying out different ones, but it just hasn't worked out for me yet.
You like the A rig?
Yeah, and I mean a jerk bait's kind of the way you fish a jerk bait's really similar to the Demiki rig. I feel just the way you're able to just let it sit in the water column in front of a fish. I feel like it's
Gotcha.
pretty similar.
Okay. And I'm assuming you're able to kind of watch that fish, watch how it reacts as you're twitching it and
Yeah,
vary your
but
cadence and all
yeah, I
that
learned
stuff
a
to
lot how important cadence is for getting a fish to react,
awesome.
but because of live scope.
Yeah, A rigs is a huge weakness for me. I remember when they came out, I went and got I don't even remember which one, but I had a big rod. I was throwing baits that were probably too big, too heavy, and throwing it on straight bait and or straight braid, and I never caught anything. I still have yet to catch fish on an A rig. I
Mm,
I know if I do, like it's just like anything. I think I assume, hopefully, that you put time in and eventually you figure it out. But I just haven't put time in it,
mm.
and I'm thinking maybe that'll be an episode. Bring somebody on that's really good with an A rig because I suck at an A rig.
One kind of like sneaky thing I've been doing is putting two of them together, so it's like a double A rig.
Oh, so you connect the one of your
Just
clips
yeah,
to
to
the
to
head of the
another
next
one.
one,
Yeah,
dude. So you're doubling the number of baits. Now, are you using blades
yeah.
or
I use those 6 cents. umbrella rigs with the double blades, or I think there's 8
Okay,
blades on it total. So
8 blades.
yeah,
So you put two of those together, and you got a massive school of bait.
yeah.
Okay. Does Florida have limits on the number of hooks you can use?
No, they don't have anything like that really. You can
Okay.
do whatever you want.
Hook three of them together,
I've
or
thought about
is that
doing that.
overkill? So how heavy is that when are you using relatively? I mean, I guess it's all relative. I know there's some deep lakes in Florida, but are you like 10 feet or more, 10 feet or less?
It depends on the place. For the most part, I'm fishing like 10 to 12 feet of water in a lot of the areas around me. But there's sometimes when I'm fishing in places that have like 40-foot areas and things like that. It just depends.
40 foot in Florida.
There's some places that I fish they're like 65 feet at the deepest spots.
Man, so are those like a what do they call them? Phosphate pits?
Yeah, one of the places is like that. There's a lot of like sinkhole lakes too that have deep areas.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
that I remember watching Mikey Balls years ago fishing. I guess it wasn't that many years ago, fishing some places in I don't know if you consider it Central Florida or Southern Florida, but fishing stuff that was deeper than what I realized was there. But
Hmm.
I thought most of what he was doing was like in 20 foot or so. But yeah, that I didn't realize you had 40 and
Oh, yeah,
more.
there's some, especially if you're fishing like the rivers and stuff. There can be some really deep areas.
Dude, that's cool.
Hmm.
Um, I got one more A-rig question. So are you adjusting the weights on your rig based on how deep you're fishing, or do you have kind of a standard?
I just always use 1/8 ounce jig heads, and
Okay.
yeah, I feel like the quarter ounces are a little too. It falls too fast for how I like to present it. So
Okay. And is it just kind of a steady retrieve, or do you
yeah, I usually just do a steady retrieve and change the speed based on how the fish are reacting to it.
okay. So no stopping and starting like a jerk bait, just
Not
sling it out.
from my experience, if you stop it, they kind of get spooked by it for some reason. So I just do a steady retrieve.
Okay. I think I can do that. I think. I'm gonna have to play around with that more this year because I think I've got a rod I can throw it on, and I've got a couple of rigs. It just
Mm.
it's just a matter of sitting down and figuring out what to put on there. You got a favorite swim bait or
I use 3.8-inch Kitex and electric shad. That's like
okay,
regardless of water clarity or anything, I just use those.
okay. So
And I
so
use straight 20-pound fluorocarbon.
gotcha. So no braid connector, just
Nope.
straight. Okay. And you don't have any problem getting those fish in?
No, no. I use an 8 foot. I it's rated for 4 to 10 ounce lures. It's
Oh,
8 foot
okay.
heavy, so yeah, I don't have any issues really
You
with
got some
that.
power, you just winch them in.
Yeah.
All right. You ever run into two?
Oh yeah.
Like or more than
I once got like a 6 and a 5 on one cast before.
no,
Yeah.
11 pounds in one cast.
Hmm.
I remember when it first came out seeing I think it was mostly smallmouth that I'd see, but I'd see these pictures of a guy with like a fish on every he's got
Hmm.
one A rig, but he's got five, limit in one cast. I've always thought that'd be a cool thing to do, but
Yeah,
it
it can happen if you find the right school of fish.
gotcha. All right, so we talked a little A rig, a little jerk bait. So you mentioned glide baits as the year goes on.
Hmm.
Is that another, big fish? Are you throwing it to specifically target the big fish?
Yeah, I'm always just targeting big fish in general. Like when I'm scoping, like I don't bother with like if I see a little one, I'm just trying to get the big ones for the most
Gotcha.
part. I don't really care much for quantity.
Okay. See, I respect that. when I was your age, I cared more about quantity. I like setting the hook. I didn't get to do it very often. So yeah, I definitely hit it. Have gone through phases where I'll target big fish, but I'm still pretty happy if I'm catching 2 to 3 pound fish. But I've
Mhm.
gotten to where 12 inchers. There's lakes where you can go catch 112 inchers, and
Right.
I don't. That's not the kind of place I want to go. I'd rather go someplace where I might not get a bite all day, but I got a chance at a grown one.
Mhm.
And I'm not great with the glides. I've thrown them a little bit. I've started doing that a little more back in 2024, and I'm hoping to play around with some more. I just bought my first what is it? The trick shad. I got the
Mm.
7 inch.
Yeah,
Um,
I have the 11-inch one. I haven't gotten
okay,
anything on it yet. I got it in the fall, and I feel like once we start to get into like mid to late spring, that's when it should get really good for it.
okay. What are you willing to share? Which ones you catch, or which ones are your favorite, or some of the ones you throw?
The Spro Chad Shad I throw a lot. My
Okay,
biggest ever glide bait fish, it was a little over 9 pounds, and I think it was 24.75. That's my biggest ever glide bait fish.
dude, that's a good fish though. That's
Yep. And
that's a big fish.
another good one's the Bait Sanity Chimera Shad. That's another good glide bait.
Okay,
And
I think I've seen that one. Is that the one that has the like the bristle like paintbrush tail?
yeah.
Okay, I think I've seen guys throw that one. Like my problems, or one of my problems with them was oh, let me back up even. The Chad Chat, are you throwing original, or you said or the
The Spro
PBS?
one, whatever, the
Okay,
not an actual KGB.
gotcha. I've I've looked, like, I never seem to be able to get the drops, and I only was able to get the trick shot. I miss all the drops for those. I only was able to get it because I happened to be at a show and work in a booth like right across, and Mike was over there, and I saw the table and had to go over there and grab one.
Hmm.
They had some cool custom stuff too. I was hoping to run into them again at another show later this year, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll make it.
I've been trying to get the KGB King Shad. It's the same thing as the Chad Shad, but I think it's 12 inches instead of
Ooh.
like 7 inches or however big the regular one is.
So like
But
same proportions, just
just like a
a
giant
big.
version, yeah.
I've
But
I've
they're
listened to some of the guys talk about the big baits, and like they all say like nine, or it seems like they all say that nine, and like the bigger ones draw more fish, have more
hmm.
power to pull the fish to it. Um, yeah, I don't know that I could cast a 12-inch bait with the gear I got right now.
I had to get a custom, or not custom, but I had to get a Dobbins rod that was made for like big swim baits for the trick shad. It's rated for 8 to 20 ounce lures. So
8 to 20.
yeah.
Good Lord. Is it a broomstick, or does it still have a little bit
This
of
still
tip to
has
it?
some bend in it.
8 ounce. You said 8 to 20 ounces. So
Yep.
that's a pound and a yeah. What is it? 16 ounces and so over a pound.
Hmm.
Dude, that yeah, that'll wear you out. People used to talk
Yeah.
about deep crank and wearing you out. Slinging a pound and a half lure.
Hmm.
I can't imagine. But I do the Chad Shad. I played around with one a little bit this year. I got my feelings hurt a little bit. Had a muskie take one.
Mm.
Uh, you guys don't have to worry about that down there, do you?
No, just pickerel
Ah, okay.
and
I guess.
bowfin
And
sometimes.
what about gators?
They'll chase frogs and stuff, but that's about it.
Okay, so you never had them hit like a
No,
subsurface
they
lure.
don't. They just hit topwater stuff.
Okay, that's good to know. That makes me feel a little better. I've got some glide baits. I'm planning to bring down to Florida. I was a little hesitant
I
to
will
sling
say,
them.
sometimes like if a big long nose gar gets it, that might. I've lost glide baits to them before, so
Ah, yeah, lots
it
of
just
teeth.
depends on what place you're fishing. I guess some places have more than others.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm trying to think. So aside from the glide baits, you mentioned big worms.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it like old monster size or even bigger?
Yeah, I've caught a lot of good ones on the Zoom All Monster. For my favorite one is the 12-inch man's jelly worm.
With the one with Paul Elias on it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the old school one.
Yeah. It's got a spade tail. Is that the one I'm?
Yeah,
I
they're hard to find now for some reason. I can never get them. I just bought a bunch before and can't find anymore.
I got to dig through my stuff. I don't know if I still have them. If I got them, I'll send them to you. I
Cool.
bought them once upon a time, and I might have thrown them like all of twice. It's like I had to put so big a hook in it. I was
Mm-hmm.
putting like
I
70.
use for my big worms. I use a owner. I forget what it's called. It's like it's called the oversized worm hook is what it's called. They come in 7/0 and 11/0. I get those
Gotcha.
depending on because Gambler has a 16-inch straight tail worm I throw sometimes too.
Good Lord. What do you think it is? A snake or?
There's there's a lot there's these they look like eels kind of. I don't really know what they're a type of amphibian, but they just look like a little eel that a lot of lakes have.
Huh.
I feel like that is kind of what it imitates.
Like not needlefish, like an actual like
I mean, it could
snake
because
looking
some of the
thing?
places do have needlefish, but I feel like it's kind of those whatever they are. I forget what they're
But
called, but
it's a critter. It's so it's not technically a fish.
no, it's an amphibian like a frog or whatever. But
Dude, I'm gonna have to look it up.
it's called something like a two-toed I know it starts with an A, and it's called like it starts with two-toed because it has like these two little things on the front they use to move around, I
Okay.
guess. But yeah, there's a lot of those
Cool.
around here.
I've
People don't
never even
really
heard
know
of
about
those.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, never heard about them, never seen them.
They
Dude,
get
that's
big too.
cool.
They can. I've seen like an injured one before at the surface that was like 2.5 feet long. So they're
Dude. But they're skinny like an eel to where one could actually like a big bass could actually
yeah,
scarf.
big bass could easily eat like a 12, 18-inch one.
You could be onto something. Maybe that's what we need to do is get some private waters and get some of those things and
Put a
test.
bunch of eels in them.
Yeah. See if they've tried trout. I hear people talk about gizzard shad and crawfish, but I never hear anybody talk about eels and two tones or
Yeah, two-toed. I
two
forget
toed.
what the last thing is, but yeah, it starts off with that. That's what I
Okay.
remember. There's
Dude.
a lot of the big bass lakes have these things called hognose carp suckers also. That's like one of the
I've
lesser known
is
ones.
is it is it like a sucker species or something?
Yeah, it's a type of sucker. And those
Okay.
can get like 4 or 5 pounds, I think. But when they're like 2, 3 pounds, they're good for trophy bass. So if you
Gotcha.
ever see a place that has those, it's probably a good trophy bass lake.
Gotcha. You ever live bait fish much or you like
I
the
used to. There's an RV park at the end of my street. Me and my friend used to live bait fish a lot with bluegill because there was a dock that had like thousands of bluegill that would hang around it. And we'd catch those, we'd throw them in, and there'd be big bass underneath the dock that come up and eat the bluegill. So we just started live bait fishing out there. We caught some good ones out there.
Dude, it's fun. I remember uh, fishing this little pond with my younger brother, and he's 10 years younger. So I don't know, I was probably in college at that point, and I remember finding a bass, and it was not the biggest pond, not the biggest fish. It was probably 3 pounds, and it was on a bed. I think it was the male, and I kept throwing baits to it. I couldn't get it to eat. My little brother was playing around trying to catch bluegill. He caught one. I told him to bring it over, and we pitched the bluegill over there. And of course, he had the little bluegill hook in his mouth. So the bass, it starts swimming all sideways. Yeah, bass scarfed him, and then we went and caught another one, and then I tied a big old bass hook on for him and pitched that in there. The bass ate that one too, and we actually had it hooked for a while. He's fighting on his little Zebcos,
Mm-hmm.
and it ran and broke the line, but. Yeah, bluegill. Yeah, bass love them.
Yeah, I've had like bigger bass eat a smaller bass I hooked before, but like as I was trying to reel in a big one came up and ate
No,
it. That's happened a few times.
Dude,
But I've
were you
never
actually able
landed
to
any
land?
that way. No,
Okay.
I've never landed them like that
Dude,
yet.
that would be the closest I ever had. I'll have fish follow. You'll see that with smallmouth sometimes, or largemouth, where you're fighting a fish, and then a bunch of them follow it and try to take the bait away from it.
Mhm.
But I saw it this summer fishing a river, and I think I was fishing a drop shot, light line, little 4-inch bait, and I mean it was a tiny fish, like maybe 7 or 8 inches, like not even close to being a keeper. And I had a smallmouth. I couldn't tell if the smallmouth was chasing it, trying to take whatever it had caught, or trying to eat it. But it was, I think it's the biggest smallmouth I've ever seen, and it's hard
Mm.
to judge it because it happens so fast, and you see the fish like dart out and chase it for a minute, swim up to the surface, and it's not the same as like having it in your hand, but it was pretty cool. I still
Right.
have no idea if it was trying to take the little drop shot worm, or if it was trying to eat that 7-inch bass. But that
Mhm.
would have I might have had a heart attack. That would have been
Yeah,
sick
that'd
to
be
watch,
crazy.
especially if I landed it. But um, dude, I've kept you, I feel like, long enough, but I want to give you a minute. I'm gonna ask one more question. Like, if you could offer one tip for Florida fishing, somebody who's never been down there before, whether it's live scope or not, I'll let you pick. What's one piece of advice to help that person catch a good fish?
So if you aren't live scooping, I'd say just throw a Senko and there's a good chance you'll get a big one. And for like if you're like doing live scope stuff, look for the good offshore grass lines is what I'd say.
Okay. Uh, Follow-up question on the Senko. Are we talking like Texas rig or weightless like wacky deal?
All of them, no matter how you rig it.
It
I've caught
doesn't
big
matter,
ones doing everything. Yeah.
dude. Awesome. All right, well, I'll give you the floor for a minute. I'll let you, if you want to plug your social media or talk about a sponsor or whatever else, I'm going to give you the last word here.
So my Instagram's just _big_bass. So that's the only social media I really have, and I don't have any sponsors, so I don't have to
Dude,
worry about plugging anything.
keep posting those big bass, and I think they'll come knocking. That
Yeah.
I swear, if you want to grow your Instagram channel, mine, yours is significantly bigger than mine, but I feel like big bass is the way to do it. Nobody wants to see little fish, and you can put
Right.
out big videos and stuff, and people will pay attention a little bit. But you post big giant bass, and people will come look at them.
Hmm.
But Dalton, thanks again for coming on. I had a blast. I hope to run into you competing in a tournament someday. But
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man. This was
yeah,
fun.
best of luck in 2025, and keep catching those big ones, man.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, take care, dude. Dalton Albright, ladies and gentlemen. That was fun. All right, hopefully that whet everyone's appetite for some Florida fishing. I know I can't wait to get down there. I've said it multiple times. Can't wait to escape the cold and have a shot at some big bass down there. So thanks again to Dalton for sharing all that juice with us. Um, we got 2 segments to go. I ran a little long with the intro, so we'll go through these fairly quickly. Let's do yakking on a budget first. I am dipping into the bank of tips that Brandon Yoder sent me a couple of weeks back. This one was inspired by him also. He mentioned discount codes. So, good way to save some money, discount codes. But he was specifically talking about codes that you can get through some of your local clubs. I know I've fished with a couple different clubs, Mid Atlantic Kayak Bass Fishing, MAKBF, and Northern Virginia Kayak Bass Anglers, NVKBA. Both, as part of the membership with them, you get access to discounts on certain products. They've also included them as in prize packs. Like I think it was a Yak Attack voucher for like $50 um, for qualifying for the TOC for one of those a couple years ago. So it's something that you might not always think about. It's easy to remember, or to notice a clearance bin at a tackle store or Walmart or something. But don't forget about those those discounts that you may have access to through your local club's sponsor affiliations. And then I'll throw in one other one. Don't forget, you have access as a listener of the Serious Angler Podcast Network to discount codes over at Omnia. So Serious 10% off your order. So if you need to go over there and stock up, I just looked. They do have missile quiver worms. There's a 6.5-inch worm that I like a lot. That it's a stick worm. There's not much to it, but something about that thing, it really works, especially in Florida. So I'm gonna have a bunch of those. If you want to throw what I'm throwing, you can get them over at Omnia. And again, Series 10 gets you a discount. So yeah, discounts, good. Saving money, good. That's going to be Yakking on a budget for this week. And for Kings of the Week, I found one. I actually went and looked back at this tournament. I talked earlier about how tough it was, the Lake Havasu event, season opener for Bassmaster Kayak Series. 30 anglers didn't catch a fish in 2 days of competition. I wanted to highlight an angler who struggled the first day. So I'm shouting out Kenny Hood. He is our King of the Week. I found him. If you want to follow him on Instagram, it's at Khood Fishing. But why I want to acknowledge him is he did something that is tough for me to do. He had a tough first day of the tournament. Didn't catch a fish the first day of the tournament. I've done that before. I should say it's not hard for me. It's easy for me to not catch fish on the first day of the tournament. What's hard is what he did on day 2. He didn't go home. He didn't quit. He went back out and put up a limit. Went from a 0 fish the first day to a limit. And for the conditions, a solid limit. Put up 77.25 inches. And, went from being way down in the standings, probably thought he was out of it, moved all the way up to 20th place. Again, that's how tough the tournament was. There were, I believe it was 6 guys, I said earlier. Yeah, 6 guys that limited both days out of a field of over 100 anglers. So Kenny Hood, in that situation, it's really hard to stay focused, to be positive, and to go out there and just forget about the previous day. Kenny did that, put up 77.25 inches, finished 20th, and that's some valuable points. Not sure if he's looking to, try to qualify for the championship and fish some other events in the year. But if he wants to do that, he's put himself in a good spot. Determination, not quitting. I like it. Kenny is our King of the Week. And that's going to be it for this edition of Kayak Fishing Weekly. Tune back next week. We're going to have some more kayak fishing conversations. And until then, remember to take a kid fishing.